I fundamentally believe that life is not a zero-sum game, that the pie is ever expanding, and that there is enough room for all of us to benefit. I like to win as a we. I like to show up authentically. I love to showcase, the really messed up bits of me and the things that I'm learning and growing in, just as much as I want to show the shiny things.
Welcome, one and all, to the Cloud Gambit podcast, where we continuously integrate awesomeness and deploy knowledge. I'm William, just a humble pipeline orchestrator, just another YAML file sitting in a repo somewhere. But with me is the continuous delivery diva of cloud, the container queen herself, Yvonne Sharp. Are you ready, Yvonne, to containerize wisdom and scale it to the masses today?
No, I'm absolutely not. Not after that introduction. No. I am excited to be here today, though, because today we have Emily Freeman with us. And if you don't know Emily, I don't know where you've been, but she's author, speaker, entrepreneur now, and she has I'm sure a lot to talk about with her new endeavor, Forrest and Freeman and Forrest. Is it Freeman and Forrest?
It's Freeman and Forrest, but we kept messing it up too. So I bought forrestandfreeman.com just in case.
That's great.
That is so funny.
That's great.
Yeah.
And her fabulous book, DevOps for Dummies. So welcome, Emily. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this.
Do you want to give the listeners like a quick, just doesn't have to be in depth, just a quick summary of your background, just sort of your experience leading up to this big co-founding with Forrest?
Yes. So Freeman and Forrest is not even 6 months old. I left AWS as head of community in December. And prior to that, I was a lead at developer relations at Microsoft. Before, hitting two of the three clouds, I was actually a developer, Java and Ruby. And then before that, I transitioned into tech. I was a ghostwriter and worked in PR and nonprofits prior to learning how to code. So I have kind of a circuitous background on how I've come to tech.
That's awesome. Yeah, you a lot of experience with product marketing, really. I just have a question out of the gate that just so I don't forget to ask it, but how have you seen this like marketing landscape change in recent years? And like, are there specific marketing strategies that are like becoming just less effective? And the reason I ask is I read the Pay the Creators Manifesto from the website, which was awesome. But something really important, I think, that stood out, with a pinch of humor, I might add, was, hold on, I actually put it in a notepad. They are plowing those dollars into scattershot, low ROI stuff like display ads and content syndication networks. And I think that's a really good point. But yeah, any thoughts there?
I have so many thoughts here. I think when it comes to traditional marketing, you're really seeing a transition from that sort of style where you have traditional PR, traditional advertising, where you're doing those display ads. You're also doing things like, we can't watch Formula One without seeing the logos of AWS and Oracle and all sorts of other large companies. Those advertisements on those cars are exceedingly expensive. And so there is absolutely both a need for the companies to be able to market their products to reach those right audiences, but also there is an incredible amount of budget that flows into those departments. I think from my perspective in marketing overall within tech, it's shifted, and you've seen, this isn't new. We've really seen this over the last 15 years. I keep thinking about Steve O'Grady wrote a whole book about this, the new kingmakers. Developers, and I would say technical practitioners, however that ends up being categorized, whatever your job to be done or role is, have really transitioned from the implementer to, if not the purchaser, then someone who has incredible influence over the tools that get purchased. And so marketing shifted from this sort of thing where it's like, oh, you're listing off your features to really thinking about, how does this impact developers? Does this speed up the process? There's a difference between, I always laugh because if you're really targeting executives, you'll talk about developer productivity. It saves time. And if you're targeting developers, you'll talk about developer experience. I think it's the same thing, right? What makes a developer's life easier? What takes, what AWS would call the undifferentiated heavy lifting off of the plate of the developer and allows them to really focus on the things that are their unique value add and really add to the business. And so for me, you've seen a shift in marketing from more of in line with consumer-based marketing into very developer-focused, much more technical marketing than you would generally see.
So I was just going to say, like, the marketing is like hard, like from, I've worked from like big company to like startup. And like, to me in the beginning, when I started doing any sort of marketing at all, I thought, you know what, this is just like magic. It's like, okay, what's going to stick? Like, how can you even wrap a strategy around it? How can you squeeze any KPIs out of this thing that are meaningful to give back to, some like a CMO or a CEO? It's rather challenging. Is that a correct frame of thinking, or is it like, do you see it as a really well, like, percentage based budget goes to X, Y, and Z? We have our KPIs and we can show our value through data in that manner, when a lot of the inputs that you're bringing in from lots of different sources, attribution and all these different things, it's like really hard to narrow things down. And it seems like the data would almost be skewed in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think for me, great marketing is as much art as it is science. There's certainly patterns you can identify. And it's been fascinating. I'll talk about that in a minute, but what Forrest and I have discovered works with influencer marketing is not necessarily what I have guessed at the start of this. And so, that your highest ROI platforms and influencers is different than I would have imagined before I got into this in a deep way. But I also think, when you're thinking about budgets and things like that, there's a sort of steady trickle of marketing that you want to do around educating the market, keeping your brand in that zeitgeist, because you can't capture a customer in the moment they want to buy something. You need to be the thing that they think of when that moment comes, right? And so that's where that steady beat of marketing and advertising, whether it's traditional or in new media, that really works well. But then there's these surges, and it can come with a launch. It can come, with Freeman and Forrest, we work a lot with developer relations teams. If they're doing something with a big push, like say 30 days of AI, we want to come in and boost that content and really get more eyeballs on that and work in a rhythm with the business. But there's also things that just happen, and you want to be able to jump on those moments when they come. And that's where I think marketing departments are clever if they reserve 10 to 20% of their budget to jump on those moments when they come, because you don't know when they're going to come. It can just be something that occurs in the news and you want to be able to highlight that, some kind of surprise on social that you want to be able to boost or call back to. That's where that sort of magic comes from. And that is a bit intuitive in that, I feel like this is going to go viral. I feel like this has all the components to do it, and go from there. And you don't hit every time. Like every time you swing, it's not going to be a home run. But I think if you get into it and you trust both the science part, the kind of established pattern you see for your business, and allow that marketing team to capture some of those moments, those unexpected magical moments, you're going to be golden.
Love it.
When there are two sides to especially the tech influencer marketing coin. Mm-hmm. There's the marketing department side, the marketing organization, and then there's the influencer side of that. And, the world of social media has changed a great deal. I'm like an OG Twitter user, and I miss the Twitter of, a decade ago. It makes me sad. I think we've got a fresh rash of defectors from that particular platform, which again, I grieve the loss of their voice. So for the folks on the influencer side who they're active in social media, they maybe don't want it to be their full-time gig, but enjoy being involved in the community and having a voice. What are you seeing from that side for the practitioners?
It's a great question. We're definitely in a two-sided market. You have the companies who want to take advantage of influencer marketing. You also have the influencers. We sit in between those two worlds. We are absolutely supply side constrained. So I'm going to run out of influencers way faster than I run out of clients who want this. And so if you have any desire to be a content creator, to write technical work, to create a newsletter, or be more active on LinkedIn, please do so. I will happily throw budget your way. I think for me, the influencers, it's such an interesting thing. And one of the, not surprises, but conversations I've had a lot this year is from brands who are concerned that if they sponsor content creators, there will be an ick factor in the community, that they're going to have like points kind of deducted from their reputation if they do that. And for me, the answer is, this is no different than paying open source maintainers. We have established that we need to pay people for their time. And there are humans in this industry who maintain software and open source work that so many of us depend on. They deserve to be paid for not only their expertise, but also their time. And for me, content creators are the same. These are humans that create videos, tutorials, blogs. They teach new people how to get into tech. They teach established engineers how to be better or how to learn one technology. That all takes time and effort, and they're often doing it for free. And if we, just as we rely on maintainers for that software, we also rely on content creators for their information and their knowledge. And for me, it's the same thing. We want to pay them. And it's not a brand. Yes, it is a brand sponsoring, but for me, it's a brand partnering with a content creator and saying, we believe in this person, we believe in their voice, and we want to showcase our product through their eyes. Corey Quinn has this great quote, and we adhere to it. You're buying attention, you're not buying an opinion. And so we're very strong on that, and we want to make sure that our influencers also align with brands. I'll pick on Diversify Tech is a great newsletter that they have a litmus test and they have a vetting process. So I'll say, hey, we'd love to place for this client in your newsletter. And they'll come back and say they passed, they didn't pass. And so some influencers have these kinds of more formal processes, but a lot of times we just make sure like, hey, do you believe in this product? Are you excited about this product? And when we can find influencers who are like, oh, I've been a huge fan of them for forever, I'd be happy to write about them. That's magical.
Sure. And some of the questions that I often get from folks in the influencer space is, how do I navigate this with my day job? How do I navigate that reality that I have? I want to maintain a certain degree of my own identity.
Yeah.
I also have a day job, and those folks like pay my bills.
Yes.
And so I want to be sure that I'm in a good, solid working relationship with them. But I also, we know what loyalty is like these days in the tech industry. I want to be sure that I'm, availing myself of other opportunities that are out there. What guidance do you give folks in the influencer space that are asking those questions?
It's fantastic. You all are asking the best questions. I think I can give genuine advice on this because I've been in this space and been an influencer who got squeezed in this particular way. It depends on the company. I think, when I was at Microsoft has one of the most amazing moonlighting policies I've ever seen. And it was fantastic and allowed me to both support their brand, but also build my own on my own time. I was always really appreciative of that. And so there's companies that are supportive of that. And certainly certain startups are supportive of that in that they understand that what benefits you and your personal brand also brings attention to our brand. It's just secondary. As far as representing others, if someone works for an AI company, if they don't feel comfortable representing all other AI companies, we can absolutely keep that in mind. So we're really sensitive to making sure, we're coming to the influencers and not only allowing them to speak in their voice with their opinions, but also adhere to their specific circumstances. The market is tighter right now than it has been in other years. And so, I think we all need to be a little bit more sensitive about that. And I will tell you that being public has saved me so many times. And so I am difficult to, I'll say I'm difficult to fire, given how public facing I am. And so that has always sort of saved me quite a bit, not only gotten me other job opportunities as well. And so I highly recommend being public facing when it's appropriate. It will help you more than it will hurt you, though that doesn't mean you won't get occasionally spanked. And then I will also say that I have taken risks that I thought might get me fired. That the GitHub video for what is DevOps, when I did the multiple arrows, that was amazing and a fantastic thing. I did not tell AWS I was doing that before I did it. I broke the rule on that one.
That is a rule break right there.
Yes. Because if I had asked for permission, they would have said no.
Okay.
But I knew that opportunity, I knew it was going to be amazing. I knew I could pull this off. I knew that the team, and Martin at GitHub, props to him. I mean, he called me. He was like, I have a crazy idea. I was like, I love crazy ideas. Shoot me or shoot it. And, he's like, let's do one division for DevOps. I'm like, sold. And I just knew that was going to be worth losing my job. If that was going to be enough of a lift, that if something happened with AWS, I would quickly get picked up. And I also, it wasn't a completely unreasonable risk. I felt like that is a great win for AWS. I'm upending essentially a Microsoft conference as an AWS employee. That's huge. But if I had asked for permission, they would have absolutely said no to that. I had to just go do it. And then they were thrilled with it. And so, everyone's calculus is going to be different based on their personal kind of risk tolerance and their personal situation. But I think, thinking about your career as a long-term thing, as a 40 to 50 year experiment versus this is my one job right now, that's going to not only keep you really sort of level and realistic around, okay, this isn't the end of the world if something crazy happens, or wild happens, but also, making sure that you're investing in you. We talk a lot about invest for retirement, invest in these, be an angel investor, and all that's amazing. Yes, please save for retirement, save for a rainy day, and please continue to grow you, because investments in you are going to be the ones who pay the biggest dividends.
I love that. That's great advice. Really good advice and great story.
Thank
really.
you.
And so I guess in order to become like a good writer, for instance, you have to probably read something first. You got to read a lot, probably.
Yeah.
And common sense. But you and Forrest both, you've really established yourselves like over the years as like influencers by just building quality things and saying valuable things on Twitter or wherever. And in Forrest's case, also delivering this like music and tech fusion to the masses, which is
He's
hilarious.
amazing.
But this is such a big endeavor, and it's like you all have seen the change in the marketing landscape, and you're really looking at just a massive opportunity with, Freeman and Forrest. And was there like a specific moment? Because I remember when I saw it, like the announcement, I'm like, what? Yeah. Emily Freeman, Forrest? What? That is really cool. I don't even know what it is. And I'm going to look at this website and check it out. And, but was there like a moment that where you realized that, yeah, we need to build this platform?
Not a particular moment, I would say. I have faced this problem both at Microsoft and at Amazon. I'll pick on Amazon. The Heroes program and the Community Builder program, they're amazing. And the Heroes and Community Builders for AWS are some of the most brilliant people in that ecosystem. And I feel that the company benefits more than the people involved in those programs. And that type of inequity over the long term, I think serves neither party. And so if someone's investing in the AWS community, building content for AWS, yes, there should be this sort of professional, I guess, accolades, and these titles of AWS Hero and AWS Community Builder. Those things mean something. It does. And I'm big on people deserve to be paid for their time. And so how do you motivate not only the people in those communities for your particular brand, but also the people just beyond? I would say most brands excel at appealing to people who are already bought in to their ecosystem, their service, their ideas. Where companies struggle is how do you reach the people you haven't reached yet? Because they're not in your solar system. They're so beyond. They don't follow your advocates. They don't listen to your brand. They're not interested in that. How do you reach just beyond and expand your sort of horizon there? And that's for me where influencer marketing is that glue. And you can see it. I mean, in our work, we worked with a customer recently with an influencer outside of their general sphere. And of the clicks we drove to their site, 80% of those people were new users who had never come onto one of their brand properties before. That's significant. That is the thing that moves the litmus test for this. But as far as like, was there this moment? We had been talking because Forrest left Google just after I left AWS. We were like, we'll start a podcast. And so we kind of talked, but we were both really burnt out and needed a break. And then in doing some consulting, Forrest called me and was like, I think we could make a business out of this. Like, are you sure people would pay for that? I don't know. And they do. So there's a huge market here. And so we're thrilled. And, it's been interesting too, because we didn't start by solving this from a technical perspective. We solved this manually. And now we are implementing this formal platform. And we will likely use it internally first before we make it, externally facing. But it's been really interesting to discover what the market actually needs, what clients need, what influencers need, and how to make that best connect and work for everyone.
Well, and I know that, folks that are getting involved in community or building their own platform or engaging, they ask questions like, how big of a platform do I need? Or what's the right platform? I mean, do I continue to invest in Twitter, or is it all on LinkedIn now? Or do I need my own newsletter? Like, should I blog? Should I do videos? How do you approach those questions? Because the answers are very unique. I don't know any influencer who does it the same way. So what do you look for?
You're completely correct. It depends. For me, I think from the influencer perspective, the primary thing that you need to think about is, who am I? What is my voice? What is my unique experience and worldview? And how do I reach people? In that, like, I'll say me. I come to tech from a different perspective. I didn't grow up wanting to be a developer. I don't have an engineer's brain. I was terrible at math. I'm absolutely in the liberal arts and in the creative writing. And so I come with a different perspective. I think, being a woman in tech, I have a unique perspective from that standpoint. I wrote for a decade before I moved into tech. So I am skilled in that way. But I also come to life with, I fundamentally believe that life is not a zero-sum game, that the pie is ever expanding, and that there is enough room for all of us to benefit. I like to win as a we. I like to show up authentically. I love to showcase, the really messed up bits of me and the things that I'm learning and growing in, just as much as I want to show the shiny things. Because, for me, having that connection and that relational moment between humans is so much more valuable to me than appearing a certain way. And just having that understanding of, like, this is me, this is my perspective. Not everyone's going to like me. Not everyone does like me or listens to me. I'm probably super annoying to some people, and that's totally fine. You are never going to be everyone's favorite kind of pie. But you need to be your kind of pie. Don't try and add every ingredient or mimic someone else, And this is, companies do this too. They'll say, we want the next Kelsey Hightower. Well, first of all, there's only one Kelsey Hightower.
That's
and
exactly
second,
right.
Most people would not recognize a Kelsey Hightower if they came and sat right down in front of you.
Right.
Kelsey is magic for a very specific reason, but that magic is not unique to Kelsey. It's just the Kelsey magic that is unique to Kelsey. And so, when you're an influencer thinking about that, don't try and over-engineer the platforms or think too much about how you're going to show off. That's going to come through as inauthentic, and people can't connect with that. The second thing I'll say is watch your tone. And I mean that not in a tone policing way, but I will say some people come on and are unnecessarily mean. And they're sort of mean-spirited in their perspectives. And I'm a big believer that I think you can come and provide feedback and criticize without being cruel. And I'll speak only for Forrest and I, but we don't tend to work with those influencers because it doesn't align with our values. It also, in my opinion, puts the brand reputation at risk because you just don't know how that's going to go. But finally, platforms. This has been the most surprising thing for me because the platforms that perform the best by far are newsletters, and second place is LinkedIn. These are platforms where you get really engaged audiences. And to your point, how many people do I need? I mean, we start paying some newsletters. We sponsor 1,000, 5,000 folks. So you don't need to have 1 million people on your newsletter list to start selling those sponsored placements and to start monetizing your asset, which is that newsletter. But LinkedIn as well, you have the ability to not only consume that media and to learn something, but also to click immediately and learn more. And right now in this market, that conversion, that click-through matters more to companies than engagement. And so whereas 2 years ago, I would have said TikTok, Instagram, short form video was the winner. Right now, I would say not as valuable to companies as they were.
When it's interesting to me, just that LinkedIn has been that slow and steady,
Yes.
low drama, professional focused platform. And in a time of extreme turmoil and folks not knowing what platform to trust or what the government's going to do with the platform, all on TikTok or, any number of other variables, we shall say, that LinkedIn has really become the place to share meaningful, professional type content, product type content. So that's very
it's refreshing, really. It really is. Like going from Twitter to LinkedIn, it's like going from I won't go into what's going on in my brain right now.
Analogy. I can't say that out loud.
Yeah. One thing that you said that stands out is you I think you sort of said it a few times, but maintaining, with these creators, building a platform on which they can really retain their authentic voice.
Yes.
While working with, sponsors or whoever. And I think one thing I was reading on, I think it was one of your blogs, was something, there was a blurb about not selling out or something. Because that can be, I think sometimes there are startups that are going to say, hey, we want to hire an influencer, but we basically want to write what you put out there.
Yep.
Here you go.
Yep.
And that's not, people know. People know. So you're not gaining any value anyway. A little bit of light criticism isn't going to kill anybody.
No.
It's normal. It's absolutely fine. So how do we,
and
how
folks
do you normalize
know your product
this?
isn't perfect. Yeah. Sorry, William.
Yeah. Everybody might know except maybe the product team of whoever the company.
Yes.
Just kidding.
This is one of the harder conversations I have to have with clients, because if you want to control the actual, messaging from a word-to-word perspective from an influencer marketing is not what you need. You need traditional advertising. you need those very traditional ad placements and again, traditional PR. Influencer marketing works because it is those people who are just outside your solar system or who have big megaphones within your specific niche and people trust. And when you replace their voice, it strips away that trust. The influencer loses. I never recommend an influencer say, yeah, you can come in and say exactly what you want. And for us, we don't allow that. The only exception to that is if they want specific messaging added into a blog, and then really it's writing for that client's platform. But if something like outside of a blog for that client's actual company blog, it needs to be in the influencer's voice. And we can help nudge that. For us, every influencer gets a brief. We include like the facts of the product. We include what we think is really useful. We include some verbiage around like, this is the message we want to drive. But we believe strongly in allowing influencers to put that into their own voice and to put their own spin on it, right? Santiago Valderrama, we work with him constantly. He's an AI influencer, incredible influencer. And he does this great job of looking at the product, picking out what he thinks is useful, explaining the value of it to his audience in a very effective and concise way. And for me, he's one of the, sort of canon of what it would look like to be that sort of perfect in between of, yes, you're being sponsored, but you're not betraying your audience. You're not losing your voice. You're maintaining this integrity over that influence.
That's great.
And I think
there's so many. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Well, I was just gonna say, I know some influencers who have very big, very powerful voices, who are so concerned about the corruption of sponsorship that they lose opportunities.
Yep.
And that's unfortunate, right? And I think like that, we all work for a living, and that is not that is virtuous. Inside my worldview, that's a virtue. That's not a vice.
Yes.
And it's all in how you do it. Right?
Absolutely. And we've gotten comfortable with this to a degree with developer relations. I mean, I worked for and was paid by Microsoft and Amazon. That did not also mean that I was a shill for them. If you think that I didn't have very combative internal meetings with both of those brands about what I was willing to say, what I was not willing to say, and what I felt was a betrayal to the community, you're joking. And I know everyone who works from both of those teams, we would consistently push back. And that's part of my promise and my commitment to the broader community is I will not betray that trust. I will not do something that doesn't align with my values. And when it's possible, I always try and find a win-win, but sometimes it's not possible and you have to push back. But you're absolutely right, Yvonne. There's a way to be sponsored and to monetize your work without betraying your integrity. Absolutely.
And when it's not a good fit, it really sticks out.
Yes.
Like a sore thumb, like more than I think folks realize from the outside looking in anyway. And yeah, one thing I was going to say is like, there's just so many cool startups getting funded that are doing such cool things. And you said something earlier that really piqued my interest was, finding someone like an influencer that is actually familiar with one of these companies that wants to hire some help. It's such a good match because I've noticed that like with myself, like I used to like write about startups that I thought was interesting. I would take out this piece or that piece, and this is really cool what they're doing. And it just seems like if you can find someone that actually knows the product and believes in the product, that is like the perfect, it's like a unicorn pairing.
It is.
Almost.
It is. Yes. And that's what, honestly, Forrest and I are attempting to not only home in on, because we're pretty good at matching, but there's still learnings and areas where we're really kind of getting tighter on what that sort of magical recipe is, but then also automating that. Like, how do we make this so that, companies can eventually log on to our platform and say what they want to kind of drive home, explain what the product is, select their niche, and then have us suggest these influencers that would appropriately align with their campaign. That will be that's my great challenge, but I'm really excited about it.
That's a beautiful vision for the future. Yeah. I like that. Do you have, I think we're coming up on 40 minutes. Do you have anything else, Yvonne? This has been a great conversation.
Yeah,
I've learned
it has been great. Same. I think that the only thing I would ask is, what would you recommend to, give a recommendation for both like marketing teams and for influencers, like for folks that are wanting to do it better? What would you advise them to do, either reflectively or to improve how they are, just showing up in the world?
Yes, I think on the influencer side, if you don't already have, a newsletter or a social presence, please do start that. Don't, the thing I hear the most is, well, what would I say? Everything I would say has already been said. So what? You think I wrote one of the first articles I wrote when I was first learning how to code was just a very simple blog post on recursion. This is not different than any other particular blog post on recursion. There's probably, 10,000 of these, but it was written in my voice with my perspective. And that's where it's different. You're going to find your audience. Don't limit yourself, and experiment. So get started is advice number 1. And then 2, I would say just learn to be comfortable making mistakes in public. None of us are perfect. We're all learning. The thing I always tell people is, when we see the others on social with these perfect, perfect lives, perfect bodies, perfect families, la, 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 la. We kind of look, but we don't love those people. In fact, some of us would, there's a dark part of me that would enjoy a fall of someone in that way, because it's like, you're not rooting for them. There's a twinge there of not fun feelings. I think what people attach to and the relationships, even if they're parasocial relationships between someone you don't really know on a personal level, what the magic is there is showing the messy bits. If you're making a teapot, before you adhere the spout to the actual cup, you have to scratch the clay. And it's those broken pieces, it's the messy bits. That's what sticks together. And so, yes, you're going to be criticized by mean human beings. And yes, there will always be trolls. And yes, some of us end up dealing with some like scary human beings. But don't let that stop you. Like, don't try and over edit. Don't try and be perfect. Even in this, I have stumbled over my words. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just do the thing and you'll get better and better and better as you go. For the marketing teams, I think try it out. Some folks are nervous about this and they feel like I was talking about earlier, what if it doesn't look good if we sponsor a podcast or, if we sponsor a newsletter? I have not heard that. And it's possible that there's in the corner someone upset about this. I have not felt a big pushback from the developer community. I have only felt a relief that companies are partnering with some of our favorite voices, and making sure that those voices can continue to deliver this amazing content and educational work for all of us. So try it, see what works, give it enough of a time to experiment. We have some companies come in and we can showcase what the sort of benefit can be in a month. But having a couple months to really hone in on that messaging and figure out which influencers are going to represent you best, being there to support some launches, that's where you really start to see the value over the long term. And then finally, be clear with your goals. There are companies who need a ton of awareness that because the brand or that specific product isn't super well known. There's companies who want engagement, right? They want to, for whatever reason, grow their sort of engagement on various platforms and make sure people are not only aware of the brand, but also, enjoy the brand, love the brand, trust the brand. But then there's also those conversions and making sure that if what you actually want is to drive signups, the goal of your campaign is actually going to be clicks and that conversion across to your own property. And then, so the more clarity you can have when you come to us around what is it that you actually want to glean from this, the better we can deliver for you.
That's really good. Really good advice. And I thought I was going to end the conversation a second ago, but now I got one more question. It's bubbling up. So Yvonne and I are part of some communities that are at the sort of an inflection point, or just the point where they're trying to they started in traditional infrastructure and they're trying to upskill. And every once in a while, well, like a lot lately, like someone might ask me, hey, how did you upskill with cloud and different things? Like what is the advice you give me? And I usually start off with like, hey, it would probably be a good idea to learn Linux if you haven't, have some exposure to Linux. It'll help across a lot of things. But the second thing, something that I can just relate to personally is I started writing a long time ago. I've always liked writing, but it helped me in so many different areas. Writing. It's just such a beautiful thing. But then whenever I mention that, it's like the first reaction is, okay, what else besides that?
Right.
And like, okay, well, how do we get, like, is writing a dying thing? Am I understating its value? I know Yvonne, again, too, has inspired me with some of the things she's written in the past. She's a great writer. What can we do about this?
I love that whole train of thought. I think there's really two things to discuss there. There's what you just talked about, which is writing. And for me, the most transferable skill is someone who can research something, learn about it, and write about it. If you can do that with anything, you can do that with anything. If you think for a minute that I have written blogs where I'm always an expert on everything I'm writing about, I am not. I promise you, I am not. There are things in DevOps for Dummies that I had to go research and learn about and then write about. That is one of the best skills and something I consistently look for when hiring people, because if you can do that, your background, your specific skill set, you can apply that across the board and learn as you go. Writing, I think, highlights the areas where you don't know something. Even when interviewing and talking to people, you can kind of skirt around areas that you don't know about. But if you're going to really sit down and write a thought piece on something, it's going to become very apparent very quickly where your kind of knowledge gaps are. But then I think right under what you said is this bigger theme that I'm seeing across tech right now. And it's, what else? What else? Because the advice I give, writing is great advice. I completely agree. But the advice I give is go make friends. Because I will tell you that my career is where it's at because I made friends. And I did every favor someone asked of me. And I worked my ass off. I wrote DevOps for Dummies at night between the hours of 9 p.m. and midnight. After I tucked my kid into bed. I have done an incredible amount of work, and that includes things I would have preferred not to do. If you want to get somewhere, if you have big dreams, you have to put in the big work. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, be paid for every little thing. I want to make sure that's possible when it's possible. But I think right now there's this idea that me or, Kelsey Hightower or whatever, it just happened. And it didn't just happen. There's a ton of years of dedication and work and behind the scenes things that are invisible to everyone else. I didn't just walk up on stage and deliver a perfect talk. It's 3 weeks of work. And that's just that one little moment, So I think for me, I worry about some folks in the industry just believing that things just happen. They don't just happen. Yes, there's a bit of luck. I'm incredibly lucky. And I did the hard work that made sure that when an opportunity came, I was ready for it. And I took risks. And I would encourage everyone to put in 5 to 10% more effort than you think. If you want to continue to grow. If you don't, if you're happy where you are, awesome. I love that for you. If you're not in a position to do that right now for whatever reason, because of family obligations or your health, that's fine. But yeah, I think, we need to have a real conversation around the work that goes on behind the scenes that makes the sort of very public facing elements look easy, because it wasn't easy.
That was podcast poetry right there. That was great.
Good. It's going to ruffle some feathers, but that's okay.
Hey, speak the truth.
No, you remind me of the Nick Saban reel that I see come across my frame of vision where he's talking about getting players ready. He's like, it takes what it takes. And I think that's like, it takes what it takes. It takes a lot. It does take work. And yes, everyone deserves to be paid. And there are also many, many things that folks have to do to get there. So I think that's a great place to close. Where can people find you, Emily?
I am Editing Emily on Twitter. I will not call that thing X. I am Emily Freeman on Blue Sky. I just went back to Blue Sky, so we'll see if they do better this time. And then freemanandforrest.com is where you'll find Forrest and my influencer marketing company. So stay tuned. We have a lot of really exciting things coming up. I'm really excited about 2025 for this company.